Welcome to the last program on functional English. Here's a quotation. The greater part of this world's troubles are due to questions of grammar. The author of these words, Michel de Montaigne, was not an English language teacher, but he sounds like he was referring to one of those terribly difficult teaching-learning days, doesn't he? Well, while we haven't quite solved any of the world's troubles in the programs we showed you, we did honestly attempt to offer explanations on some of the major problem areas of English grammar. A word of advice. You shouldn't be too self-conscious about grammar when you speak English. Focus on meaning and hopefully the grammar will follow. As Oscar Wilde said about a fellow writer, George Moore wrote brilliant English until he discovered grammar. Or as Alice Ellis said, grammar is like walking. You have to think about it when you start, but if you have to go on thinking about it, well, you fall over. It should come as second nature.
Hi Shailaja.
Hello Rama, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
I'm okay. It's been a long time since we met.
Yeah.
How's your job?
Fine, not bad.
Good. How's Swati?
No, I don't know.
It's been a long time.
There she is.
Hi.
King of the devil.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine.
How's life?
It's okay, but my job is killing my social life.
Why?
I've been so busy. How is your job?
It's fine, not bad. But my manager has made my life miserable. He thinks he is Mr. Perfect and I just hate that attitude.
Why? What happened? Is he unhappy with your work?
Oh no, this doesn't have anything to do with my work.
Then what?
He just thinks that I can't speak English well.
What? Did he say that?
Well, no, but he has recommended my name for a training program in communication skills in English. What do you gather from that? Remember, school and college, nobody dared to speak to me in English. They knew I was the best. But this manager, how dare he?
I understand. I too have a boss who has this I know it all attitude.
Now Rama, Swati, both of you are taking things too far. You know, everyone needs to attend training programs. They're very useful even to the best of speakers.
Yes, we know, but why not someone who's really incompetent and in need of training? Why me?
Why didn't you ask him?
I did.
And?
He said, Rama, I know you have a good command over the English language, but I feel that you must improve your communication skills while talking to the clients over the telephone.
Well then, you have your answer.
But I don't understand. Since he did acknowledge the fact that her English is good, then why the training program?
Swati, you should know by now that knowing English does not necessarily make us good communicators. Remember Srinivas, our lab instructor at the Computer Training Institute? He is competent in software development, but he is not able to communicate. Remember every time he said, if suppose I'm returning back, all of us used to burst out into giggles? He ought to have improved his communication skills.
Yes, I remember. We used to have a lot of fun in his classes. Remember how we used to laugh every time he began his sentence with, why because?
Yes, that's true. But don't you think it would have been a good idea for the institute to send him for some training to improve his communication skills?
Don't compare me to him. My English is not as bad as his.
No, I'm not making a comparison. But I do think a training program would help you polish your communication skills. And as your manager pointed out, you do need to know how to handle telephonic conversations.
But I have never had problems while speaking over the telephone.
Are you sure? Remember what you told me last week about the conversation you had with one of your US clients? He said elementary and you heard a lemon tree.
True, but the problem lay with the client. He should have realized that we often find it difficult to understand an American accent.
He's your client. You should therefore be able to interact with him without any difficulty. Remember, the customer is always right. Perhaps you should use your experience of the telephonic conversation and say there ought to be a training program on learning how to handle an American accent.
Yes, that would be a good idea. Perhaps we could club it with the program on communication skills. There should be something in it for everyone.
Yes, I've been planning to suggest the idea to my manager. I think I need some training in communication skills.
Great. Let's hope it works out well for you. I'm happy I spoke to you about it, Shailaja. I think we must meet more often. Swati, what do you say?
I think it's good that we met. And next time we meet, I suppose we'll be talking to a competent communicator.
In our day-to-day interaction with our friends and colleagues, I'm sure there have been instances when we've been caught in a state of dilemma. You must have thought, how do I tell her it's necessary for her to do it? How do I tell him without offending him that smoking is not good for his health? These are cases of should I or shouldn't I? And this happens mainly because either we are at a loss of words or we are afraid that we could be misunderstood if we voice our emotions. Sometimes we may have to tell people to do something because it is appropriate or right under the circumstances. At such times, the modal verb should comes to our rescue. Listen to the following example.
There should be something in it for everyone.
Listen to another example. Rama, you should attend the proposed training program. When we want to say about something that is likely to happen because it is logical, the modal verb should is used to explain this deduction. Listen to the following example.
Swati, you should know by now that knowing English does not necessarily make us good communicators.
There are times when we wish to express our confidence that something will happen or something is true. At such times, the modal verb must comes to our rescue. Listen to the following examples. You must take your medicines or there may be a relapse. The doctor said that you must give up smoking. But remember, the modal must is not very helpful when we wish to give a piece of advice. There are times when we cannot force our ideas or opinions on others. At such times, we use the modal verb should. The following examples will highlight the difference. I think you must give up smoking, Ravi. I think you should give up smoking, Ravi. Now, what is the difference between these two sentences? With must, I'm trying to force Ravi to accept the fact that he needs to give up smoking. However, with the modal verb should, I'm merely projecting my thoughts or feelings as a piece of advice which may or may not be followed. Now, talking of giving advice, are there any other words which will help us perform the same function? Oh yes, there are. There are two more modal verbs, ought to and need to, both which can be used to give a piece of advice. However, at this point of time, we need to observe that though ought to is used to give advice, it is not as strong as must. The following examples will help highlight the difference. You ought to give up smoking is not as strong as you must give up smoking. Ought to is also used to guess or conclude that something is probable to happen. As in the following examples, your communication skills ought to improve after the training program. Remember, ought to has no past tense forms, but the structure ought to have plus the past participle is used to talk about certain events in the past. This structure is normally used to talk about certain events which should have happened but didn't. Listen to the following example.
He ought to have improved his communication skills.
For some time now, we have been talking about orders, requests, obligations and advice. But what do we do when, as speakers, we wish to talk about our immediate necessities? Simple. We are talking about our needs. So, we can use the modal verb need to. Listen to the following examples.
I think I need some training in communication skills.
And as your manager pointed out, you do need to know how to handle telephonic conversations.
Let us not forget that there are times when we wish to challenge our listeners to do something, especially when they are afraid to do it. Also, there are times when we are very upset and we wish to convey our anger. Simple. Take the help of the modal verb dare to. Listen to the following examples.
Remember, school and college, nobody dared to speak to me in English. They knew I was the best. But this manager, how dare he?
Well, friends, in today's program, we have tried to explore situations in which the modals should, must, ought to, need to, and dare to are used. We do hope you found this program useful. Do write to us. Your suggestions will only help us make better programs. See you then. Goodbye.
Welcome back. Let me add to what you've just heard about some of the uses of modal verbs like should, ought to, must, and need. Firstly, orders and instructions can be made more polite and less emphatic by using should rather than must. For example, applications should be sent before 31st March. Secondly, although should and ought to are both used to ask for advice or to give advice, there is a difference. When we are talking about a duty or a law, we tend to use ought to. For example, A says, "I've seen a burglary, what should I do?" And B responds, "Well, you ought to report it to the police." That is, it's a person's duty to report it. However, when we are giving a personal opinion, we normally use should. For example, A says, "I've seen a burglary, what should I do?" And B responds, "I think you should forget about it." Thirdly, we sometimes use must for things we think are necessary because they are so enjoyable. For example, "You really must see this new Amitabh Bachchan movie." Fourthly, when we talk about necessity in the present or the near future, we can use either must or have to, but there is a difference in meaning. We normally use must when the speaker himself feels the necessity, and we use have to when the necessity is outside the speaker. For example, "You must fill in a form." That is, because I'm telling you to. Or, "You have to fill in a form." That is, it's the law, it's the rule. Lastly, should and ought to have an additional meaning if all goes well. We cannot use these words when things go wrong. For example, "The train should be on time," not "The train should be late." Goodbye and keep in touch.